Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. N. Shivasenani. I did my PhD from University of Hyderabad. Today, in the paper Vedic Epic and Puranic Culture of India, we will study the module Niti in Mahabharata. Our learning objectives are to understand what Niti is, especially understand its relation with Dharma. Then we look at various devices through which Mahabharata teaches Niti and examine excerpts from Mahabharata dealing with Niti, and then also look at some of the major incidents in Mahabharata and see as to what Niti they teaches. The way this module is organized is initially Niti is introduced, then the pedagogic techniques of Mahabharata in terms of teaching Niti are explained. Then we'll examine in some detail Kanika Niti and Vidura Niti, followed by stories through which Niti is preached or told in Mahabharata. And then before concluding, we'll examine a few incidents in Mahabharata. Niti is a very commonly used term in India, but what exactly is Niti? If you look at the dictionary, V.S. Apte's Sanskrit English dictionary lists 8 meanings of Niti, amongst others. It is guidance, direction, management, conduct, manner of conducting oneself, behavior, course of action, propriety, decorum, policy, prudence, wisdom, right course, a plan, contrivance or a scheme, politics, political science, statesmanship, political wisdom, righteousness, moral conduct, morality, the science of morality, morals, ethics, moral philosophy. In fact, Mahabharata covers all of these, and we have one catch-all term for it called Niti, which we can say is what really leads to one's own goal, that which carries towards one's objective. Therefore, if we now examine closely, the objective of Niti is achievement of one's own goal. That means, how do I achieve my selfish interests? That's what Niti preaches. Maybe an example will clarify this. There is a story of cat and mouse that we'll examine in future, where a mouse rescues a cat in danger. Later, the cat invites the mouse to come out of its hole and befriend the cat. Now, at this stage, it looks like an extraordinary friendship. After all, the cat was saved by the mouse. But what does Niti preach? It says that if the mouse were to come out and befriend the cat, and what happens if the cat were to turn against the mouse again? The self-interest of the mouse is in its self-preservation, so it should never come and befriend a natural enemy. This is how Niti functions. Dharma is that which when followed results in the maximum good of the maximum number. So if we have a contrast, on one hand we have Niti, which has selfish interest of the agent as its objective, and Dharma has the well-being of the overall society as its objective, or everybody in the society. There are situations in Mahabharata where apparently these are at conflict. We have something called a zero-sum game. If there is a zero-sum game and there are two participants, one man's gain is the other man's loss. So it looks like sometimes conflicts are inevitable between Niti and Dharma. The whole beauty of Mahabharata is that this contrast is explored, and Niti is taught at various places. In fact, Mahabharata shows that if one understands Niti properly, there is no conflict between the two, that is Niti and Dharma. Because deviating from Dharma in the long run is not good for one's own self. Similarly, Dharma is sometimes better served by lying. We'll see examples of all this as we go forward. How does Mahabharata teach Niti? Broadly, through 3 devices. First and foremost are the formal discourses which aim to teach Niti. We should remember that in Mahabharata, the moral is 4 times longer than the story. Therefore, there is an explicit objective to teach Niti. Examples, we have Kanika Niti from Adi Parva, conversation of Yudhishthira, Bhima and Draupadi in the Vana Parva, Vidura Niti, where Vidura teaches Dhritarashtra, and a very lengthy section called Shanti Parva and Anushasana Parva, where Bhishma, over some nearly 23,000, 24,000 verses, teaches dharma and niti to Yudhishthira. And Dhritarashtra's advice to Yudhishthira in the Ashrama Vasika Parva. These are some of the prominent examples where there's a formal discourse on niti. There are also stories at various places. We have the story of the fox, tiger, rat, wolf and mongoose in the Adi Parva, which teaches niti. We have the story of Kaushika and the robbers in the Karna Parva. The story of the cat and mouse in the Shanti Parva. All these stories also teach niti. Finally, the major incidents in the epic, they themselves are a device through which Mahabharata teaches niti, especially in contrast to dharma and how there is no conflict between those two. Let us examine a few excerpts. First, we'll take up Kanika Niti. The context is that the training of princes, that is Pandavas and Kauravas, is over, their test is over, their Guru Dakshina has been paid, and the realization sinks in Dhritarashtra that Pandavas have grown into a strong unit. So he is worried as to what will happen to his own sons. In his generation, though he was the king, Pandu wielded power. Pandu was the real power. So as a father is anxious that his children inherit his kingdom, and he wants to decide on a course of action which will achieve that objective. Accordingly, one minister called Kanika is summoned for advice. What is the consequence of Kanika's advice? The Pandavas were sent on a pilgrimage with an evil plan to burn them down in a house made of lac. And since they were not sure that Vidura would buy into the scheme, he was specifically kept out of the loop. This is an example of wicked counsel, what we call kuniti, bad niti. We look at some of the excerpts. I'll read them out along with a reference from the version on which Nilakantha commented. The king may feign blindness or deafness when required. That is, when something needs to be corrected or someone needs to be punished and the king does not have capacity to do so. We see examples of Dhritarashtra himself and also the Virata Raja with respect to Kichaka. When the king is not strong enough, he should not even take notice. No mercy should be shown upon the enemy who seeks refuge. This is in such contrast to the virtue called Sharanagati. But Niti is very clear that especially for a weak king, no mercy should be shown when an enemy seeks refuge. Enemy should be borne on one's shoulder till the right time. Once the time is ripe, the enemy should be destroyed like a pot flung on stone. That is, a king must wait for the opportune moment to strike. Whether it be son, friend, brother, father or teacher, enemies have to be killed if one desires riches. Look at the stark message. Kanika is telling Dhritarashtra, you might have to kill your brother's sons if you desire riches. This is how he builds up to the final advice actually. If one is angry, anger should never be shown and nobody should be reproached when one is in anger. This is plain common sense. One is bound to hurt others when one is angry, and there is nothing for a king to gain by hurting others. There is no possible benefit from it. One should do what one wants to do, but there is no point in revealing it. One ought to speak sweetly even while one is planning to attack a foe, and while attacking and after attacking, one should cry for the foe and grieve for him. Dhritarashtra implemented this. He would sanction schemes against Pandavas, but then again express regret. This again is not to reveal the true intentions unnecessarily. A king does not obtain wealth like a fisherman without killing, cutting and shredding the vitals of others. In case somebody has a sensitive heart, he is given this example that a fisherman earns his livelihood by catching fish, cutting them and eating the fish. Similarly, kingship is like that one has to kill, cut and shred the vitals of others. A seeker of wealth never approaches the wealthy, only when he is in need. Once the need is fulfilled, there is no relation. So the desires of seekers must never be fully satisfied. This almost qualifies as evil when looked at from a different plane. But what Kanika is saying here is that if X approaches the king saying that he has some need, if X's needs are completely fulfilled, there is no reason why X will hang on. The king should not depend on gratitude, but should hold back some part of what X needs so that X will continue to serve him. We see that this is followed in different guises even today in corporate houses, etc. Pandavas are stronger than their cousins. Therefore, such niti which will ensure that there is no regret in future may be resorted to. From a cold application of logic and common sense to achieve one's own objective, and without regard to dharma, Kanika comes to the conclusion that Pandavas have to be killed right now when they are not all that strong, rather than regret that Dhritarashtra did not kill them, and then they would grow in strength and maybe take Duryodhana's kingdom in future. This is an example of the advice of a counsel who is short-sighted, who does not think of the long-term consequences. He essentially loses sight of dharma. Now contrast this with the Pandavas' behavior, especially Yudhishthira's training and his firm belief in dharma. Pandavas knew of the plot to kill them through Vidura. Even when they grew very strong, when they conquered the world by doing Rajasuya Yaga and in Indraprastha, they did not seek revenge on Duryodhana. They could have had so many pretexts to attack Kauravas, but they never bothered about that. They did not revolt in the Sabha when Draupadi was insulted. There was enough provocation. If Arjuna alone could defeat all Kauravas in the Uttara Gograhana, when the cattle of Virat king is stolen, surely with Arjuna, Bhima and the three others together could have defeated everybody in the Sabha. And they had enough provocation. Their wife was being disrobed. When they were in the forests, Bhima and Draupadi advised Yudhishthira that they must not accept this fraudulent game. They must contest it. But believing in dharma, believing that everybody should understand the evil nature of Duryodhana, Yudhishthira bides his time. Therefore, he is hailed even today as Dharma Raja. That is the difference between Kanika and Yudhishthira. Now we look at wise counsel, that of Vidura. In many senses, the foster father of Yudhishthira. The context is that in the Udyoga Parva, Sanjaya is sent as an ambassador by Dhritarashtra to Yudhishthira. In fact, there we have an example in Sanjaya's message, how dharma can be badly applied. Sanjaya tells Yudhishthira saying that, O king, you are known to be a very wise one. Do you want to shed so much blood for the sake of your own selfish desire of kingdom? This is very badly put. Yudhishthira answers him saying that, no, I am not the one who is starting this. You are the people who are not abiding by the conditions. So let me not be confused about it. And if that's the message that between Yudhishthira and Sanjaya, then Sanjaya returns to Hastinapura and he says, I am tired, tomorrow morning in full court I will give the message of Yudhishthira. So Dhritarashtra knows the kind of message he has sent and very anxious, because if there is war, he fears destruction and he cannot sleep in the night. That's when he summons Vidura asking for some wise counsel. Now if you look at the consequence, the war still happened. Dhritarashtra still did not change. So we should understand that it is not so much the problem with Kanika or the virtue of Vidura, but it is finally the nature of the decision maker, the king. In both cases, Dhritarashtra did what he wanted to do. Let us look at some excerpts from Vidura Niti. This spreads around 8 chapters. I have tried to take representative slokas from each of the chapters. The wise do not desire the unattainable, do not grieve for what is lost, and are clear-headed in distress. In fact, expectations are the source of a lot of trouble. The moment we have desire for something which cannot get, we are setting ourselves up for a lot of sorrow. A Pandita starts a task only after due thought. Once started, he does not rest till it is finished. He does not waste time and has control over his own self. A lot of people start a task and then start thinking whether it is right or not. So Vidura is telling us a Pandita does the thinking before committing, and once he is committed to a task, he will see it through. In contrast, a fool, a mudha, forsakes his own object and runs after the object of others. For the sake of friends, he resorts to deceitful means. Nilakantha gives Karna as an example of this kind of a fool who puts Duryodhana's objectives as his own and resorts to deceitful means. One person permits sins and many enjoy the resulting spoils, but the doer alone bears the demerit, papa of the sins, not those who enjoyed the spoils. If we acquire wealth or power or influence by doing papa, finally it is enjoyed by a lot of hangers-on, but including wife, family, etc., extended family, friends, relatives. But the papa will stick to the agent alone, not to the enjoyers of the spoils. Therefore, one must not commit it, is what Vidura is trying to say here. Women, dice, hunting, drinking, harsh speech, severity of punishment and misuse of wealth are the 7 vices which can destroy even firmly established kings. A king should always avoid them. Marriage, friendship, litigation or discussion is always done only with equals, not unequals. If one does not wish ignominy for any person, then one ought to speak what is right, be it pleasant or not, dear or not, even if one is not asked to speak. In fact, this is what Vidura has done, spoken very clearly, even though whatever he says is not dear to Dhritarashtra. A bumblebee extracts nectar from a flower without hurting the flower. A king should similarly extract tax from the people without hurting them. Amongst all intoxications, the intoxication caused by wealth is the most sinful. One who falls due to this intoxication does not realize it without falling. A man is well regarded in heaven as long as his auspicious praises are sung on earth. One should do that during day, which allows him to be happy at night. In the 8 months without rains, that which allows him to be happy during the rainy season. In one's life when one is young, that which allows him to be happy in old age. And in one's entire life, that which allows him to be happy after death. This is the reason one must do dharma. Very simple examples show why one should not deviate from it. One cannot find the origin of rishis, rivers, family, great people or the misconduct of women. Cloth absorbs the color of the dye in which it is immersed. Similarly, when one has companionship with a good man, scoundrel, ascetic or a thief, one begets their qualities. One has to protect one's conduct even at great cost. Wealth could come and go. Even a wealthy man fallen in conduct is the one who is truly fallen. One has to do unto the other what the other has done unto one. That is dharma. One ought to deceive the deceiver and be good with the good. This is different from some of the morals that we see, but Vidura says not only is this niti, this is also dharma. This needs to be kept in mind. This will explain a lot of incidents in Mahabharata. One ought to give up a man for the sake of family, family for the sake of village, village for the sake of country, and the entire earth for one's own sake. The king whose thoughts are not known to any insiders or outsiders, and who has spies everywhere, such a king shall be prosperous for long. In fact, this is a common refrain across all works on Niti, Rajaniti especially, Dandaniti or Arthashastra, whatever it's called, that a king's decision should be kept secret. One who has not studied the Vedas is not eligible to be fed in rites to mains. Similarly, one not well versed in Shatgunya is not eligible to hear the strategic discussions. Whenever kings and ministers come together, we want only people well versed in Shatgunya to participate there. Even one as intelligent as Brihaspati cannot grasp the meaning of dharma without studying the Vedas and without serving elders. One who seeks comforts cannot have knowledge, and the one who seeks knowledge cannot have comforts. One of the two has to be given up. I shall now tell you the ultimate, most special and auspicious principle. Do not give up dharma due to desire, fear, or even death. We clearly see how Vidura's Niti is completely aligned with dharma. It could run foul of some notions of chivalry, example when he says deceive the deceiver, but it is meant to uphold dharma. Vidura demonstrates how Niti and dharma are not opposed to each other. In fact, he is saying that one's selfishness lies in following dharma. Having looked at some of the formal discourses on Niti, how very different they could be, we'll now look at some stories in Mahabharata. 3 stories already we've mentioned them. We'll start with the story of the fox, tiger, rat, wolf and mongoose. Once upon a time, these 5 animals work together and watch a deer who so fast as the tiger cannot kill him. So they hatch a plan and ask the rat to bite the deer in the leg when the deer is sleeping. Since this deer now has an injured leg, it cannot run fast and the tiger kills the deer. Then fox very sanctimoniously asks everybody to go wash up and come back, and that offers to watch over the carcass till the other animals come back. First, the tiger comes back, the haughty and powerful one. The fox then suggests to the tiger that the rat is boasting that the kill is essentially due to the act of the rat, and that the tiger is now dependent on the rat. The proud tiger does not like it and walks away. Then comes the rat. Then the fox tells the rat that the mongoose has observed that the tiger's poison has spread throughout the carcass and that it is unfit to eat, and that the mongoose left because of that. Mongoose is well known to understand poison because it fights snakes. The rat thought the mongoose does not want to eat this poison. Even the rat did not want to eat, and anyhow it could find its own food elsewhere. So the rat went away. When the wolf comes, the fox then tells the wolf the tiger is very angry with the wolf and that he just went to bring the tigress, and suggests that the wolf run away. The wolf does not know the reason why the tiger is angry, but is all the same scared and runs away. Finally, when the mongoose comes, the fox boasts that it fought and scared away all the other animals, and it will also fight the mongoose for the sake of this particular food. The mongoose thinks if this fox could defeat others using his intelligence or strength, I am no match to him. So the mongoose also leaves the carcass to the fox. This story is narrated by Kanika to Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra is the fox here, the weak king here, and advises how a weak king, through his niti or dandaniti, achieve his means. One can appeal to the pride of a person, one can scare away a person, one can misinform a person, but one has to achieve one's objective. This is one such story where the moral is that the king should defeat his enemies using his thinking rather than weapons alone. In the Karna Parva, we come across the story of the Kaushika and the robbers. In fact, there's an earlier part of the story which involves a hunter, but let us focus on Kaushika. Kaushika is a person who takes a vow of speaking only the truth. It is said that Kaushika has not read the Vedas, he does not understand Shastras well. All the same, he took up one virtue, saying that I'll always speak the truth. He used to speak the truth and he was well renowned for doing so. Once when he was doing tapas in a forest, a group of travelers passes by. They are being chased by robbers. After the travelers pass Kaushika, the robbers come, see no travelers, then they ask Kaushika as to where the robbers went. And they ask Kaushika in the name of truth. Kaushika is so proud of his own adherence to truth, of his own vrata, that he tells the robbers where the travelers went. Thereafter, the robbers go there, kill the travelers and rob them of their wealth. In this episode, we see that Kaushika has spoken the truth, but has he upheld dharma? Has he done the right thing? No other than Sri Krishna tells us that that is not the right conduct. For the sake of dharma, one can lie. Kaushika should have lied here, and in fact, he goes to hell. So we see that rather than individual virtues, one should consider the overall consequences before one acts. This is a very important thing because this is the lens through which we should understand Mahabharata. People who do not understand this often find faults with various incidents, but the entire framework of Mahabharata is that the focus is not on the individual means, the focus is on the end. At the same time, it is not saying that one can do whatever one wants. Ultimately, dharma has to be upheld, but given the change in circumstances, the details are what Mahabharata fleshes out here. This story is an excellent example of that. Then we have the story of the mouse and the cat, which I referred to earlier. A cat gets trapped in a net and a mouse is hovering around. When he sees a mongoose and an owl out to attack him, the mouse is also now at risk. So the cat and mouse reach a pact of mutual help. The mouse tells the cat that he will bite away the net and free the cat, and asks for protection from the mongoose and the owl. The cat agrees. So the mouse resorts to the cat, hangs on between his shoulders and starts biting away. But he does not free the cat till the hunter appears on the scene. At that moment, at the last minute, he bites away the last thread. Due to the fear of hunter, the cat runs away and the mouse runs away into his own hole. That's how both are saved. The cat comes out and calls the mouse to befriend him. But In fact, there's a very lengthy dialogue in the text between the mouse and cat, which gives us glimpses of what Niti could be. The mouse is very clear that no matter the circumstances, a friendship between a natural enemy like a cat cannot happen, and refuses to befriend the cat, though they both saved each other's lives earlier. The Niti or moral for us is that no matter the circumstances, the king should be wary in his friendships. Now let us look at a few incidents in Mahabharata. We have women in Mahabharata saying, "I will marry you if you promise to crown my son as king." We find an example of this in Shakuntala, saying this to Dushyanta. In the case of Satyavati, her father says exactly the same words. It is significant to note that the line of Kurus was strengthened by such strong-willed women. This might look like unladylike, but these women are clearly pursuing what is their selfish interest. There's nothing wrong in that. When the time comes, one has to come out and say that. Now let us look at another set of incidents, the killing of main heroes of Kauravas. Who were the biggest heroes, their commanders-in-chief? Bhishma for 10 days, Drona for 5 days, Karna for 2 days. How was each one of them killed? Through deceitful means. Bhishma was killed by Arjuna hiding behind Shikhandi. Bhishma took a vow not to fight Shikhandi. Then Drona gives up his weapons when he's told that Ashwadhama has died. In fact, he does not believe it, and he asks Yudhishthira, who says, Ashwadhama hataha kunjaraha. But the elephant part he does not speak out loud, so that Drona only hears that Ashwadhama is dead. Then Drishtadimna goes and beheads Drona, who has given up his weapons. Karna, first we have the Sarathi of Shalya, who purposefully demotivates Karna at the request of Yudhishthira, because Shalya is the maternal uncle of Pandavas, the brother of Madri. Then Karna is attacked by Arjuna when he's stuck, when his chariot wheel is stuck. Karna's defenses are taken away by Indra. The weapon given by Indra is wasted on Ghatotkacha, or used away on Ghatotkacha. In this manner, we see that the main heroes of Kauravas are killed through deceitful means. As we examined earlier, individual virtue is not glorified in Mahabharata, but the final end is glorified. It does not mean that ends justify means. There are limits, but then ends are far more important than means. That's the message we get. There's an incident where Arjuna almost killed Yudhishthira. This happens in Karna Parva, where on the 16th night, Yudhishthira repairs to his camp badly wounded by Karna. Arjuna comes to inquire after. Yudhishthira is very angry with Arjuna and blames Arjuna and his weapon Gandiva. Now Arjuna has taken a vow saying that he'll kill anybody who abuses his weapon. So he starts to kill Yudhishthira, then Krishna stops him. Then Arjuna says, fine, I'll not kill Yudhishthira, I'll kill myself, because having failed my vow, I cannot live. So finally Krishna finds a compromise, saying that you praise yourself, Arjuna, and censure Yudhishthira. Censuring elders is like killing them, and praising oneself is like committing suicide. Therefore, your vow is fulfilled, and yet we still go ahead. What we see here is essentially a workaround when things become very tight. So Mahabharata is full of such incidents. That's another blame at Krishna's door that people lay, but they do not understand that the circumstances demand such workarounds. Finally, dharma has to be upheld. In fact, it is during this incident that the story of Kaushika and the robbers is narrated by Krishna, showing how individual virtue is not to be glorified, but the end has to be kept in mind. What do we learn from this module? That Niti is the means to achieve one's own goals. That when Niti is opposed to Dharma, it results in disaster. That Niti has to be aligned with Dharma, only then the objective is achieved. This is demonstrated in Mahabharata through various means, through formal discourses, through stories, through actions of major players. In fact, by teaching Niti, Mahabharata shows that one should follow Dharma for selfish reasons. As much as Mahabharata teaches Dharma, it is the Niti in Mahabharata which shows what we call the subtler aspects, Sukshma, Dharma Sukshmas. Thank you.